The sun was a heavy, white weight over the rocky island. The air did not move. It sat in the small valley between the hills, hot and damp, making everything feel slow and thick. Ji-hun wiped his forehead with the back of his arm. His shirt was stuck to his back with sweat. He looked at the old concrete bunker sticking out of the ground. It was a square, ugly thing, left behind from the last World War. His team's job was to map it and see if there was anything inside worth keeping. It was not a great job. The money was low, and the university did not care much. Another day, another rusty nail, Min-soo said. He was sitting on a crate, waving a handheld scanner over a pile of old metal parts. Min-soo was the tech person. He liked machines more than people. Just log it all, Ji-hun said. His voice was tired. Everything, even the nails. Soo-min came out of the bunker's dark opening, brushing dust from her pants. She was their engineer, making sure the old structure did not fall on their heads. The back chamber is fully collapsed, she said. It's just dirt and big stones. No reason to go in there. It's probably empty. Ji-hun nodded. That was what the old plans said too. But the project head in Seoul wanted a full report. Everything. Min-soo, scan the back wall from the outside, Ji-hun said. Let's be sure. Then we can finish for the day. The sky looks bad. Min-soo sighed but got up. He walked around the bunker to the back, where the hill rose sharply. Ji-hun followed him. The scanner in Min-soo's hand made a soft, steady clicking sound. It was looking for shapes in the ground, for things that were not rock. It clicked over the dirt and the roots of small, tough plants. Then the clicking stopped. It changed to a low, solid hum. Ha! Min-soo said. He stopped walking. He looked at the screen on the scanner. That's weird. What is it? Ji-hun asked. Metal, but not the right kind. It's deep, maybe 2 meters down. And the reading is very clean. No rust. Not iron. Something else. Min-soo's bored face was gone. Now he looked curious. They marked the spot. It took the rest of the afternoon to dig carefully down to it. The work was hard. The ground was dry and full of stones. Soo-min helped, making sure the sides of the hole did not fall in. Just as the first winds of the coming storm began to move the hot air, Min-soo's shovel hit something that did not sound like rock. It was a dull, heavy clang. They cleared the dirt with their hands. It was a box. It was about the size of a small suitcase. The material was a dull gray metal. It had no marks, no writing. There was no lock, just a simple seam around the middle. This is not from the war, Soo-min said quietly. She ran a finger over the surface. The metal, I've never felt anything like it, is perfectly smooth. No pits, no corrosion. In this soil after 80 years? Impossible. The wind picked up, blowing dust into the hole. Ji-hun made a decision. We take it. Now, before the rain. They carefully lifted the box. It was heavier than it looked. They carried it to the main tent, the one they used for cataloging finds. They placed it on a plastic table just as the first big drops of rain began to hit the canvas roof. Inside the tent, under the bright electric light, the box looked even more strange. It did not belong. Min-soo found the opening mechanism, a hidden pressure point. With a soft hiss of equalizing air, the seam split. The top half of the box rose slightly. There was no treasure inside. No gold, no strange weapons. Just padding made of a strange, soft material that crumbled to dust when the air touched it. And in the center of the padding, a single object. A helmet. It was just as plain as the box. The same dull gray metal. It had a simple, rounded shape. It would cover a person's head and nothing else. No visor, no markings. Only if you looked very closely under the light could you see a pattern. It was like the delicate frost on a window or a tiny, repeating maze. It was almost not there at all. Is that it? Min-soo asked, his excitement fading. A helmet? No jewels? No ancient computer. It is what it is, Ji-hun said. He felt a strange pull towards it. It was so plain, so silent. He carefully picked it up. It was warm, not cold like metal should be. And the weight was wrong. It was too light for its size. He turned it over in his hands. Nothing. No words, no symbols, no buttons. Log it, Jihan said, putting it back in the broken box. Artifact X7. Material unknown. Purpose unknown. Found in association with bunker complex. The storm was loud outside now. The rain beat down on the island. The other workers had gone to their sleeping tents. Minsu and Sumin left to get dinner, talking about the strange metal. Jihan stayed. He had to finish the day's paperwork. The tent was quiet except for the drumming of the rain. The helmet sat on the table under the light. He finished writing and looked at it. It was the most interesting thing they had found in weeks, and yet it was nothing. A useless piece of ancient kit. Who wore it? Why was it here, buried behind a bunker? A sudden, foolish thought came to him. What did it feel like on your head? He looked at the tent door. No one was coming. The rain was too heavy. Slowly, he stood up. He walked to the table. He picked up the helmet again. It was still warm. The fractal patterns seemed to shift in the light, but that was probably his tired eyes. He took a deep breath. Then he lifted the helmet and put it on. Fit perfectly. It was snug, but not tight. The world did not go dark. He could still see the tent, the table, his papers. There was no sound in his ears. But for 1 second, less than a heartbeat, he felt something else. It was like suddenly knowing where every object in the room was without looking. He knew the exact distance to the tent wall, the shape of the table behind him, the position of the light above. A full, perfect map of the space appeared in his mind and then vanished. A wave of dizziness hit him. He stumbled and grabbed the table. The feeling was gone as quickly as it came. He pulled the helmet off, his heart pounding. He stared at it, then around the empty tent. Nothing had changed. The rain still fell. Too much sun, he muttered to himself, his voice shaky. He put the helmet back in its box and closed the lid with a firm click. It was just a strange old thing. He had been working too hard. He needed sleep. He turned off the light and left the tent, going to his own bed in the rain. He did not feel the tiny, warm pulse the helmet gave off as he walked away. He did not see the faint light that bled from the box's seams for 1 microsecond. And he could not know that a signal, small and fast as a thought, had shot up from the helmet, through the storm clouds, through the atmosphere, and out into the deep, silent blackness of space. It was a single word, in a language not spoken on Earth for 12,000 years. A single word. Awake. The dreams started that night. In his small, hard bunk, with the rain still drumming on the roof, Jihan did not sleep well. His mind swam with strange images. They were not like normal dreams. There was no story, just sensations. The feeling of vast, open silence. The cold, sharp beauty of countless stars, not as dots of light, but as points on a grid he could almost understand. He saw smooth, dark shapes moving against a backdrop of swirling color. Not a nebula as he knew it, but something more complex, like a living tapestry. He woke with a jolt just before dawn. His head ached, a dull throb behind his eyes. The dream faded quickly, leaving only a lingering sense of emptiness, of being very, very small. The storm had passed. The dig site was wet and muddy. The mood was focused on packing up. The main dig was done. The bunker was just an old bunker. Artifact X7 was their only real mystery. You look terrible, Minsu said as Jihan drank bitter, hot coffee from a metal cup. Bad sleep, Jihan replied. He did not mention the dreams. They packed the artifact carefully into a foam-lined case. It rode with Jihan on the ferry back to the mainland, then on the train to Seoul. He delivered it to the university's storage warehouse, a dusty room full of shelves and forgotten boxes. He filled out a form. The helmet was placed on a shelf between a box of broken pottery and a fossilized bone. The clerk did not even look up. Jihan went home to his small, tidy apartment. He tried to forget about it. He wrote his report. He called the helmet a probable piece of early experimental military gear, origin unclear. It was a boring sentence for a boring find. He sent the report. He assumed that was the end. But the dreams did not stop. They came every night. They grew sharper. He began to see the same pattern from the helmet, the frost fractal maze, but enormous, etched into the side of a dark, mountainous shape moving among the stars. He felt a deep, resonant hum, a vibration that was not sound but feeling. It was a call, and it was lonely, terribly, deeply lonely. During the day, he was distracted. He would be buying groceries and suddenly get a flash of those star maps, feeling disoriented on the busy street. He would be reading and the words would blur, replaced by the image of a colossal, sleek structure, sleeping in the dark. A week after the dig, he sat at his computer, trying to plan the next project. A news site was open on another tab. A small headline caught his eye. Unusual solar flare activity may cause auroras. He almost clicked away. Then he saw the attached image from a space telescope. It showed a graph of energy from the outer solar system. A tiny, almost invisible spike was circled by scientists. They called it sensor noise or a micro-impact. The timestamp was exact. It was the moment he had put on the helmet. A cold feeling, different from the dream loneliness, settled in his stomach. Coincidence? It had to be. He got up and paced his apartment. His eyes landed on an astronomy book on his shelf. He pulled it out, flipping to a chart of the solar system. His finger landed on the Oort cloud, the distant shell of icy objects at the very edge of the sun's influence. A place of shadows and frozen history. The headache returned, stronger. He felt a sudden, powerful urge to look up. Not at his ceiling, but past it. His mind strained, reaching for something. For a moment, the walls of his apartment seemed to fall away. He felt a connection, thin as a thread of glass, stretching up and out, farther than he could imagine. On the other end of that thread was something, waiting, listening. He shook his head, and the feeling broke. He was just a tired archaeologist in an apartment. He was imagining things, the stress of a low-budget dig. He needed rest. He decided to go for a walk to clear his head. The night air was cool. He walked without direction, through the neon-lit streets, past people laughing in cafes. He felt completely separate from them. They lived on the surface of the world. He felt tied to something in the deep, deep dark. High above, far beyond the light pollution of the city, beyond the moon, beyond the orbits of planets, the signal had been received. In the infinite cold and silence of the Oort cloud, an object that human astronomers had catalogued as a minor, uninteresting planetoid began to change. Ice and rock that had coated it for millennia cracked and fell away. Beneath was not stone, but a skin of dark, intelligent metal. Lights the color of old embers flickered on along its length. A length measured not in meters, but in kilometers. Deep inside, systems dead for 12,000 years stirred. The tiny ping from Earth had been a key turning in a lock. A primary directive, buried under eons of sleep, rose to the surface. Asterisk guardian inactive. Asterisk world child signature detected. Asterisk signal origin. Cradle world. Asterisk threat assessment protocols. Active. Asterisk navigation locked. Awakening sequence. Complete. It began to move. It turned slowly, orienting itself toward the distant, tiny point of blue light. Then, with a silent surge of energy that bent the fabric of space around it, it started its journey home. It did not rush. Its speed was beyond human engineering, but its journey would still take time. It was a patient thing. It had slept for 100 centuries. A few weeks were nothing. On Earth, Jihan finished his walk and went back to his apartment. He was calmer. He told himself it was all in his head. He made tea. He did not look at the news again. He went to bed. That night, the dream was different. He was not an observer. He was inside the dark, mountainous shape. He felt its slow, powerful heartbeat, the thrum of engines older than civilization. He saw through sensors that were not eyes, and he saw the bright, beautiful dot of Earth, growing slowly larger ahead. And in the dream, a single, clear word formed, not in his language, but in his mind. Approaching. Dr. Unipark loved the silence of the control room. It was a quiet hum of machines, the soft tap of keys, the distant whir of a telescope high above on the mountain. Her desk was covered in screens, each showing a different slice of the universe. It was her job to watch, to measure, to understand the quiet changes in the sky. She was reviewing data from the Deep Space Monitoring Array. It was mostly routine, the usual cosmic background noise, a few asteroid tracks. Then, a program in the corner of one screen flashed a soft, urgent yellow. An anomaly. She clicked on it. The data was from a special telescope that watched for gravitational waves, tiny ripples in space itself. Something had made a very large ripple far out in the solar system, not near any planet, out past Neptune, past Pluto, in the cold dark where nothing big should move. Una sat up straight. She pulled up more data, infrared scans, microwave readings. The object, catalogued as Oort Cloud Body 11471, was no longer reflecting the faint light of the distant sun like a simple ball of ice. It was emitting its own energy, a lot of it, and it was moving. Its trajectory was a perfect, unwavering line. A line aimed directly at the inner solar system, aimed at Earth. Her heart beat faster. This was not a comet. Comets did not turn on like a light. They did not accelerate with such smooth, impossible control. She ran the calculations again and again. The numbers did not lie. Something massive was coming. She checked the time of the initial energy spike. It matched a tiny, odd reading she had seen weeks before, a minor energy blip from Earth that had been written off as equipment error from some small-time archaeological dig. Two strange events. One on Earth, one at the edge of the solar system, connected by a single moment in time. A cold knot formed in her stomach. She knew the protocol. She picked up the direct line to the head of the observatory. "Sir," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "you need to come to the control room. Now, I think we have a situation one." Within an hour, the quiet room was full of noise. Senior scientists argued over the data. Security officials in suits stood looking grim. The news traveled up the chain at the speed of light. Calls were made to other observatories in Chile, in space, in South Africa. "Confirm Mauna Kea. We see it too." ESA confirms the signature. "It is artificial." Repeat, "The signature is not natural." JAXA confirms trajectory. "Impact probability with Earth is 0. It is aiming for a high, stable orbit. But its intent is unknown." The word intent hung in the air. It meant this thing was guided. It was a ship. Panic, cold and careful, began to spread through the world's space agencies. A secret emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council was called. Military leaders were woken up. The public knew nothing. The skies looked the same. Una stayed at her station. They asked her to find the source of the first signal, the one from Earth. She dug through global data logs. She found the report from the Korean Cultural Heritage Administration. A minor dig. Anomalous metal reading. She found the scan log from a device registered to a man named Min-soo. The energy spike was tiny, almost nothing. But its waveform was a perfect, if weaker, match to the energy now pouring from the object they were calling the visitor. She wrote her report. She included the coordinates of the dig site, the name of the lead archaeologist, Ji-hun. She sent it to the men in suits. In a secure room far away, leaders looked at images of the approaching object. It had shed its icy shell completely now. The pictures from the best telescopes were blurry, but the shape was clear. It was long and sleek. It had no visible engines, no windows. Its surface was dark, absorbing light. Along its sides were patterns, lines, and grooves that looked like no technology they knew. One general called it a doomsday weapon. Another called it an alien probe. A scientist from Europe, her face pale on the video screen, pointed something out. "Look at the patterning here along the forward section. The geometry. It is fractal, self-repeating. It is not random. And look at this old data from human archaeological sites. Petroglyphs, cave art, the spiral patterns found in the oldest ruins. The proportions, they are not the same, but the feeling is similar. The grammar of the shape is familiar." The room fell silent. The idea was too big, too strange. "It's a coincidence," someone said. But no one believed it. Meanwhile, the object, the visitor, continued its approach. It did not respond to any radio signals. Laser pulses were met with silence. It did not change course. It did not slow down. It simply came on, a silent mountain moving through the sea of space. On Earth, people went to work, made dinner, put their children to bed. They did not look up. They did not know that a piece of forgotten history, a piece of their history, was coming home. In his apartment, Jihan's dreams became constant. He no longer saw stars. He saw the interior of the ship. He saw vast, empty halls that glowed with a soft, internal light. He saw consoles made of smooth, living-seeming crystal. He saw a seat, simple and central, waiting. He woke each morning exhausted, with the deep, resonant hum of the ship's engines vibrating in his bones, a sound no one else could hear. He tried to go back to normal life. He visited the university warehouse, needing to see the helmet again, to prove it was just a piece of metal. The clerk let him in. Jihan found the shelf. The box was there. He opened it. The helmet was gone. In its place was a note on official letterhead. Item requisitioned by National Intelligence Service. Subject to national security protocols. He stood in the dusty silence, the empty box in his hands. The hum in his bones grew louder. It was not a dream. It was real. And they knew. He looked up, through the ceiling, through the roof, into the sky he could not see. The connection was still there. The thread of glass was now a cord. He could feel it getting stronger, pulling at him. The ship was closer, and it was calling for its pilot. The men came for him just after sunrise. Jihan was making tea, trying to shake the feeling of the dream. The deep hum was now a constant, quiet pressure behind his eyes. He heard the soft, firm knock on his door. It was not the sound of a neighbor. He opened it. 2 men in plain, dark suits stood there. They were neat, calm, and their eyes missed nothing. "Mr. Lee Jihan?" the older one asked. His voice was polite but left no room for discussion. "Yes, I am Agent Kong. We need you to come with us. It is a matter of national security." Jihan's mouth felt dry. He looked past them into the hallway. Another man stood there, watching. There was no arguing. "Can I get my coat?" he asked. "Please," Agent Kong said, stepping inside. He watched as Jihan moved. Jihan felt like a specimen under glass. The car was quiet and smooth. They did not blindfold him, but the windows were tinted very dark. They drove to a nondescript government building on the outskirts of the city. The room they took him to was small, with white walls, a metal table, and 2 chairs. A mirror took up one wall. He knew people were watching from behind it. Agent Kong sat across from him. A younger agent stood by the door. Kong placed a file on the table but did not open it. "You found a helmet," Kong said. It was not a question. "I was part of a team that excavated it, yes," Jihan said, keeping his voice level. "You wore it." Jihan paused. For a moment, it was an impulse, to feel its weight. "What happened when you wore it?" "Nothing. A little dizziness. The tent was hot. I was tired." He stuck to his story. Kong watched him. He opened the file. He slid a photograph across the table. It was an astronomical image, grainy but terrifying. It showed a long, dark shape against a field of stars. It looked like a knife. "Do you know what this is?" Kong asked. Jihan looked at it. His heart began to pound. The hum in his head grew louder, synchronized with a sudden, painful throb in his temple. The shape in the photo was the shape from his dreams. The mountainous thing. The dawn hammer. The name popped into his mind from nowhere. "It looks like an asteroid," Jihan said, forcing himself to look away. "It is not. It is a vessel. It is approximately 20 kilometers long. It appeared and began moving toward Earth shortly after you put on that helmet." Kang's words were slow and deliberate. "Our scientists believe you activated a beacon." Jihan said nothing. He felt cold. "We have the helmet," Kong continued. "Our best teams cannot understand it. It is seamless. It gives off no radiation. It is warmer than the room it is in. It is waiting. He leaned forward slightly. What is it waiting for, Mr. Lee? I don't know, Ji-hun whispered. You have been having dreams, Kang stated. You have been distracted. Your colleague Min-soo reported your strange behavior. A physicist named Dr. Unipark found the link between your dig and that object. He tapped the photograph. It is real. It is coming. And you are connected to it. Now I will ask you again. What happened? The pressure built in Ji-hun's skull. It was the hum, but now it was mixed with a flood of images. The star maps, the silent halls, the waiting seat. He saw the fractal patterns on the helmet, glowing. He saw them on the side of the vast ship. They were the same. He squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them, he was not looking at Agent Kong. He was looking through the wall, through the earth, into space. He could see it. It was closer now. A majestic, silent predator gliding toward its home. He felt its ancient mind, simple and direct, focused on the signal he had unknowingly sent. On him. It's not an alien ship, Ji-hun said, his voice distant, almost dreamy. Agent Kong went very still. What is it? It's ours. The words fell into the quiet room. It's a relic. From a war so old we forgot it. We were more once. Then we were broken. We were sent back here to start over. The helmet is a key. The ship is a guardian. It woke up because I called it. He was saying things he had no way of knowing. The knowledge was just there, placed in his mind by the humming connection. Felt like remembering a forgotten truth. Kong stared at him for a long time. The agent by the door shifted his weight. Uncomfortable. You expect me to believe that? Kong said, his voice low. Ji-hun finally looked at him, his eyes clear. You don't have to believe it. But you know the ship is real. You know it's not talking to you. And you know I am the only one it is talking to. You didn't bring me here to arrest me. You brought me here because you have no other options. For the first time, Agent Kang's perfect calm cracked. A flicker of frustration, of fear, showed in his eyes. He was a man used to control, facing something he could not control. A soft buzz came from Kang's pocket. He took out a secure phone, listened for a moment, his face turning grim. He put the phone away. It has entered the orbit of Mars, he said flatly. Our last attempt at communication was met with a targeted electromagnetic pulse. It disabled the probe without damaging it. A warning. It will be here in days. He stood up. The decision has been made. We are mounting a mission. A small team will go up to meet it, to try to make contact, to board it if possible. Ji-hun almost laughed. It was a brave, hopeless idea. You will be on that team, Kang said. You and the helmet. You will be our translator. The door opened. A woman was led in. She looked scared but trying not to show it. It was Soo-min, the engineer from the dig. You need someone who understands materials, Kang explained. She has studied the scans of the crate. She is the closest thing we have to an expert on this technology. Soo-min met Ji-hun's eyes. She gave a tiny, shaky nod. We leave in 6 hours, Kang said. You will be prepped. You will be briefed. This is no longer an archaeological dig, Mr. Lee. This is a first contact mission. And you are the reason we are going. He left the room. Ji-hun was alone with Soo-min and the silent agent. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. The hum was not a pressure anymore. It was a pull. A gentle, insistent tugging toward the sky. The dawn hammer was coming for its pilot. And he was going up to meet it. The launch was not like the movies. There was no grand countdown heard around the world. It was a secret, rushed affair from a military spaceport. The craft was a modified deep space shuttle, built for stealth and speed, not comfort. Ji-hun sat strapped into a hard seat, wearing a fitted flight suit that felt like a stranger's skin. His helmet, was locked in a case secured to the floor between his feet. Soo-min sat across from him, her face pale but set in a look of fierce concentration. She was reviewing material stress charts on a tablet, but her eyes were not really seeing them. Agent Kong was there too, as the mission's security lead. 2 pilots were sealed away in the cockpit. They were the only ones. No one spoke. The only sound was the deep, building roar of the engines. Pressure pushed Jihan down into his seat. The sky outside the small viewport turned from blue to black in a violent, dizzying rush. Then silence. A heavy, ringing quiet. Weightlessness took hold. Jihan's stomach lurched, but the feeling was quickly swallowed by something else. The hum. It was clearer now, stronger. It was not in his head. It was in the space around him. A song only he could hear, coming from ahead. They were in orbit. Earth was a breathtaking curve of blue and white below them. But no one looked at it. All eyes were on the forward screen. The pilots turned on the main viewer. The stars were sharp and cold. And there, in the center of the screen, was a shape that blocked them out. The dawn hammer. The grainy photos did not do it justice. It was vast. It made their shuttle look like a grain of sand next to a mountain. It was long and graceful, with a surface like dark water, absorbing the sunlight. Along its flank, the fractal patterns glowed with a soft, internal blue light, like veins of slow fire. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was completely, utterly still. No response to hails. The lead pilot's voice crackled in the cabin. "It's just waiting. Take us closer," Kong ordered, his voice tight. "Standard approach vector. Slow." The shuttle edged forward. The giant ship grew larger on the screen, filling their view. Jihan could feel its attention now. It was like a grate I had opened and was looking directly at him. The hum became a gentle thrum, a vibration of welcome. A section of the massive ship's hull, seamless a moment before, began to change. A dark rectangle of material flowed away, melting open without a sound. It revealed a landing bay, perfectly sized for their small shuttle. Soft guide lights glowed inside. "It's inviting us in," Sumin whispered. "Or trapping us," Kong muttered. "Proceed." The pilots, their hands shaking slightly, guided the shuttle into the open bay. It was like flying into a cathedral made of night. The interior was lit by the same soft blue glow. The shuttle settled onto the deck with a gentle bump. The moment they landed, the outer hull flowed shut behind them, sealing them in. There was a hiss as the bay filled with air. A screen in the shuttle lit up. Atmosphere nominal. Compatible with human life. Kong looked at the reading, then at his team. "Suits stay sealed until we are sure. Weapons ready." Jihan unstrapped himself. His legs felt weak. He reached down and unlocked the case. He took out the helmet. It was warm, almost hot to the touch. The fractal patterns were glowing, pulsing slowly in time with the thrum he felt. "Leave that," Kong said. "No," Jihan said, his voice quiet but firm. It was the first time he had disagreed. "It's part of me now, and it's the only thing it knows." He did not put it on. He just held it. Kong stared at him for a long moment, then gave a sharp nod. The shuttle's door opened with a sigh. A ramp extended to the deck. The air that washed in was cool, clean, and smelled of ozone and something else. Something old like stone and starlight. They stepped out. The bay was enormous and empty. In the far wall, another opening appeared, forming a tall, arched doorway. A path of light led toward it. They walked, their footsteps echoing in the huge space. Jihan led the way, drawn by the pull. They passed through the doorway into a corridor. The walls were smooth, dark material. The blue fractal lines ran along them like pathways. The place felt not dead, but deeply asleep. The corridor ended in a large, circular room. It was the heart of the ship. In the center was a single seat, simple and elegant, made of the same dark metal. In front of it, consoles of glowing crystal rose from the floor. The room was a control bridge, but it felt more like a throne room or a temple. The thrum was strongest here. It filled the air. "My God!" Sumin breathed, looking around. "The material, it's not built. It's grown. The atomic structure is perfect. No seams, no welds." Kong kept his weapon raised, pointing it at nothing. "What now?" Jihan walked to the center seat. He knew this place. He had dreamed it every night. He ran a hand over the back of the chair. It was warm. A gentle tone filled the room. A hologram flickered to life above the main console. It was not a human shape. It was a complex, rotating model of the solar system. Then it zoomed out, showing a galaxy. A path was highlighted, from a distant, forgotten battleground to a small blue world. Then words formed in the air. They were not in Korean or English. They were symbols. But Ji-hun understood them. Asterisk Guardian Protocol activated. Asterisk World Child detected. Asterisk Threat Database uploading. Awaiting command. Images flashed through the hologram. Wars among the stars. A crystalline enemy? Beautiful and cruel. Shattering worlds. A last, desperate decision. To hide the survivors, wipe their memories, and leave a guardian to sleep until they were ready to remember. The knowledge settled into Ji-hun's bones. The truth. Humanity was not from Earth. Earth was a cradle, a shelter. They were the children of a fallen empire. It thinks we're its commanders, Ji-hun said softly. It's a crew. Before anyone could respond, a new, urgent alert pulsed through the bridge. The hologram changed. It showed the outer solar system. A new signature appeared. Small, sharp, and radiating a different kind of energy, a hungry, aggressive signal. It was approaching from the same direction the dawn hammer had come. The ship's tone changed. The gentle thrum became a deeper, warning vibration. Asterisk threat identified. Asterisk scout class predator. Asterisk target. Cradle world biosphere. Estimated arrival in Earth space. 48 hours. A schematic of the enemy vessel appeared. It looked like a shard of jagged, glowing crystal. Silence fell on the bridge. Sumin looked at the image, then at Earth on the screen. Kong lowered his weapon, his face ashen. The peaceful mission was over. The war they had forgotten had found them again. Ji-hun looked at the helmet in his hands. Then he looked at the waiting seat. The pull was no longer a suggestion. It was a necessity. He sat down. The chair felt like it was made for him. He took a deep breath and slowly he put the helmet on. The world did not go dark. It exploded into light. He could see everything. Every corridor of the ship. Every star outside. The approaching enemy. The terrified faces of his friends. He was no longer just Ji-hun. He was connected. A single, clear thought formed in the stillness of the bridge, spoken through him, but in the ship's old, powerful voice. Weapons online. For a moment, Ji-hun was lost. The flood of information was too much. He saw through 1,000 sensors. He felt the hum of engines older than cities. The ship's thoughts were not words, but pictures and feelings. Maps of stars. Memories of fire. A deep, protective anger. Ji-hun. It was Sumin's voice, sharp with fear. It was a tiny sound in the vast ocean of data. He focused on it. He pulled himself back to the bridge, to his body in the chair. He could still see the enemy ship on the hologram. It was a sharp, angry light moving fast. The dawn hammer labeled it with simple, clear terms. Target. Predator. Threat to the cradle. On Earth, the World Space Commands were in panic. They could see both ships now. The giant dark one, and the new, smaller, aggressive one coming behind it. They did not know what to do. Their weapons were useless at this distance. Agent Kong stepped closer to the chair. Can you control this? Can you fight? Ji-hun did not answer with his voice. He thought a question. How? The ship responded. A new layer of information unfolded in his mind. He saw systems, sleeping like great beasts. Point defense grids. Primary energy lances. Gravity projectors. They were not buttons to press. They were parts of a body to move. I need to understand it, Ji-hun said, his voice echoing strangely inside the helmet. It's not a machine you turn on. It's alive. It's like learning to move a new limb. Sumin moved to the glowing crystal console. Her engineer's mind pushed past her fear. Okay, let's think. It's a system. Every system has logic. Show me power distribution. As she said it, Ji-hun focused on the idea of power. A schematic appeared on the main viewer for all to see. Lines of golden light flowed through a diagram of the ship. Most of it was dormant, a quiet pool. but a small stream was active, running to engines, to life support, to sensors. Good, Sumin said. Now, defensive systems. Shields. Ji-hun thought of protection, of a wall. The schematic changed. A section of the ship, near the bow, glowed. It was a network, like a web. It was offline. The power stream did not go there. It's asleep, Ji-hun said. We need to wake it up. How? Redirect the power, Kang said, his soldier's mind grasping the tactic. Like rerouting electricity. Ji-hun tried. He imagined the quiet pool of power stirring. He imagined a channel opening toward the shield web. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a low groan vibrated through the deck. On the schematic, a trickle of gold light moved slowly toward the defensive grid. On the hologram, the enemy scout changed course. It had seen them. It stopped its rush toward Earth and turned, facing the Dawn Hammer. It knew the bigger ship was the real threat. A beam of brilliant violet light shot from the tip of the crystal ship. It was not a laser. It was something else. A beam that cracked and sizzled through space. It hit the Dawn Hammer's bow. The impact was silent on the bridge, but the ship shuddered. A warning tone sounded. A section of the outer hull schematic flashed red. The material had withstood the hit, but just barely. The shield was not yet active. Faster, Ji-hun! Sumin yelled. The enemy fired again. This time, the beam scorched along the dark hull, leaving a glowing scar. The ship shuddered more violently. Ji-hun closed his eyes inside the helmet. He stopped thinking and started feeling. He was not a man operating a ship. He was the ship. The damaged hull was a burn on his skin. The sleeping shield was a muscle he had forgotten how to flex. With a grunt of effort, he pushed. The pool of power surged. The golden channel exploded into a river. Across the schematic, the shield web blazed to life. A second later, a third violet beam struck. This time, it splashed against an invisible, shimmering barrier 200 meters from the hull. Ripples of blue light spread out where the beam hit, dispersing the energy harmlessly into space. A sound came from Ji-hun, a sigh of relief mixed with the ship's own satisfied hum. Shields are holding, Sumin reported, watching the data. But the enemy was fast. It darted around them, firing again and again. The shields held, but the power drain was immense. They could not just defend forever. Weapons, Kang said. We need to hit back. Ji-hun searched. He found the weapons. They were even more dormant, buried deep. Waking the main cannon felt like trying to lift a mountain with his mind. He strained. The power river tried to split to feed both shield and gun. The shields flickered. No, one at a time, Sumin warned. You'll overload something. The enemy ship, seeing the flicker, concentrated its fire on one spot. The shield there began to weaken, glowing a dangerous orange. Ji-hun had an idea. He didn't go for the big cannon. He looked for something smaller, faster. He found it: point defense arrays. Thousands of tiny, automated turrets under the hull. They were for stopping missiles and small fighters. They were like a swarm of bees. He woke the swarm. Along the underside of the Dawn Hammer, panels slid open. Small, crystalline barrels emerged. They tracked the darting enemy scout. Ji-hun did not aim them. He simply gave the order. Destroy threat. The swarm fired. It was not one big beam. It was a storm of 1,000 precise, bright lances of light. They filled the space between the two ships. The enemy scout tried to dodge, but it was too many. The lances struck its crystalline surface, not to pierce, but to shatter. They chipped away at it, flooding its sensors, scrambling its movements. One lucky shot hit a glowing power node on the scout side. The crystal ship stopped dead. Its violet light flickered, died, and then reignited in a violent, silent explosion. It shattered into 1,000,000 glittering fragments, scattering like ice in the sunlight. The storm of fire stopped. The point defense turrets retracted. Silence returned to the bridge. The only sound was the heavy breathing of Ji-hun, Sumin, and Kang. On the viewer, the expanding cloud of crystal dust slowly drifted, catching the distant light of the sun. The dawn hammer's hum returned to its gentle, steady state. A new message appeared in the hologram. Asterisk scout neutralized. Asterisk threat assessment updating. Asterisk primary swarm detected. Asterisk estimated arrival. 8 months. 7 days. A new image replaced the debris. It showed the edge of the solar system, and beyond it a distant, horrible glow. Not one ship, but thousands. A wave of cutting, hungry light, moving slowly but inevitably toward the cradle world. The victory was empty. They had swatted a fly, and now they saw the approaching locust swarm. Jihan slowly took off the helmet. His face was pale and wet with sweat. He looked from the image of the swarm to the blue marble of Earth on the screen. The fight was over. The war was just beginning. The silence on the bridge of the Dawn Hammer was different now. It was not the silence of sleep or of wonder. It was the heavy, clear silence after a storm. The kind where you hear the damage, and you know you must start to rebuild. On the main viewer, Earth hung beautiful and unaware. On a second screen, the terrible, glowing swarm was a distant smear of threat. 8 months. Jihan carefully placed the helmet on the arm of the command chair. It felt like unlatching a part of his own mind. The constant hum faded to a gentle whisper at the back of his thoughts. A connection he now knew would never break. Agent Kong was the first to move. He tapped the communicator on his wrist. His voice low and official. Mission Control, this is Kong. The immediate threat is neutralized. Repeat. The enemy scout is destroyed. He paused, listening to the burst of shocked relief from Earth. We have new data. A much larger force is incoming. We are returning to Earth with the asset. He did not know what else to call the ship. Sumin was still at the crystal console, her fingers tracing the air above its surface, pulling up readouts. The power systems are regenerating. The minor hull damage is already healing. The material is reknitting itself. This technology, it's beyond anything. It's biology. It's art. Jihan stood up. His legs were weak, but they held. He walked to the viewer and looked at Earth. It's not an asset, Agent Kong. It's a teacher. And it's a warning. We have 8 months to learn the lessons we forgot. The journey back to Earth orbit was quiet. The Dawn Hammer followed their shuttle like a loyal, massive shadow. This time, the world saw it coming. News channels showed the long, dark ship taking a high, stately orbit above the planet. Panic flared, then was soothed by official statements. They called it a rediscovered human heritage vessel. They said it was here to help. It was mostly the truth. Jihan, Sumin, and Kong were debriefed for days. They told the story of the ancient war, of the cradle world, of the Guardian. World leaders argued. Some wanted to take the ship apart for its technology. Others were afraid to touch it. In the end, a simple fact decided things. The ship would only respond to Jihan. And Jihan, with Sumin's calm reasoning beside him, refused to let it be torn apart. It's not a weapon to be captured, he told a room full of generals and scientists. It's a library and a tool. We must learn to read it before we can use it. A new group was formed. They called it the Steward Initiative. Jihan and Sumin were the first. Yuna, the astronomer who had first connected the dots, was brought up from Earth to join them. The best engineers, linguists, historians, and soldiers were chosen. Their mission was not to conquer the stars, but to remember. Weeks turned into months. The Dawn Hammer became a school. Jihan, with the helmet, could ask the ship questions. It showed them how its systems worked, not with manuals but with shared understanding. Sumin and her teams learned to direct the growth of new structures within the ship, workshops, living quarters, research labs grown from the living metal itself. Yuna mapped the ancient star charts, finding the old routes of their forgotten ancestors. They learned the enemy's true name, the Veracity, a hive mind that consumed not just resources but memory, history, the energy of thought itself. The old war had not been for territory, but for existence. One day, Jihan went back to the beginning. He returned to the rocky island, now a busy site of a different kind. A simple, elegant structure, inspired by the ship's design, had been built over the old bunker. It was a museum and a research center. He stood at the edge of the original dig hole, now preserved under glass. He looked at the small, empty space where the crate had been. Sumin came to stand beside him. "It feels like a lifetime ago," she said. "It was a different world ago," Ji-hun replied. He looked up at the blue sky. In his mind, he could feel the dawn hammer circling high above, a steady, watchful presence. He could feel the slow, steady work of the stewards learning, building, preparing. The whisper of the connection was a river of quiet data now. Reports on new reactor designs, translations of ancient logs, progress on building smaller, human-compatible ships based on the Guardian's principles. The fear of the swarm was still there. It was a deadline, but it was no longer a death sentence. It was a test to see if humanity could rise to meet its own forgotten legacy. "Do you think we'll be ready?" Sumin asked, her voice quiet. Ji-hun thought about the vast, sleeping power of the ship. He thought about the teams of people working day and night, not for one nation but for one species. He thought of the helmet, now sitting in a place of honor on the bridge, not as a key, but as a symbol. "We won't be what we were," he said finally. "That civilization is gone. We're something new. We're the children who found their father's old sword. We have to learn its weight. Learn why he put it down." He looked from the hole in the ground to the horizon over the sea. "We're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting to remember who we are. And that is a reason to fight." Above them, a streak of light caught the sun, a human-made shuttle, carrying more stewards up to the waiting Guardian. The work continued. The remembering had begun. The war was coming. But for the first time in 12,000 years, humanity would not face it asleep. They would face it awake, with their eyes open, and their history finally held in their own hands.